Hi there. It's taken a while before doing this, and I thought I would take some time and do this series properly and plan all of it and all that good stuff. But I haven't. It's been a while. If you've watched any of my videos, I have been busy. I'm studying. My name is Seraphine. If you're new here, thank you for joining. And if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe. The algorithm likes it and helps me create more videos for you. So this is a video, it's a follow-up to a video I did called Married for 3 Weeks. And one of the subscribers sent me a message some time back, and I saw it, I think 3-4 months later, and I promised to do this. And they reached out to me on Facebook and said, okay, it's long overdue. Sometimes you create something, you're just talking, thinking about your life, taking stock, and you post something and you don't realize how it impacts other people. So I am sorry for those of you who, like this particular subscriber, have waited and not seen anything about this. I have been concentrating on other stuff, more business related stuff than this. But this is also something I do just to make sure that, look, I'm talking to you about business, but at the same time, I'm talking to you about other aspects of life that may not necessarily be business related, because that whole spectrum of the human being is important. You can't talk about business without talking about the private life, and you can't talk about the private life without talking about the business aspect of it, and all of that is intertwined. So here goes the second part of Married for 3 Weeks. And my subscriber, who happens to be an old schoolmate, has sent me a couple of questions here that now are going to inform the next series. So this is part 2, and today I'm going to talk about the issues that were part of that marriage and the reason it eventually broke down. If you're in a marriage like that, please post me a message. I'm sending you loads of light. It comes a time when you will make decisions that are good for you and good for your family. But I made mine, and my best decision was to leave. So I said I'm going to talk about the issues. And I don't know if you could call them issues. I mean, it just depends on your perspective. But the issues, and I'm going to put that in quotes, in this particular relationship were many. And now that I look back, now that I actually smile and laugh and even scoff at some of them. One of them, I was just responding to my friend on Messenger a few minutes ago, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to do this video and have it benefit other people who might have the same questions and probably going through the same thing at this point in time. One of them was religion. I dated this gentleman. He was, I'm Christian. I was born Christian and raised Christian. This gentleman was Muslim. And this is not a condemnation of Muslims. I have Muslim friends. I have always known Muslims. My first job was for a Muslim organization. It's got nothing to do with my feeling about the religion. Okay, so don't come at me. And if you do, that's your problem. Now, the gentleman was Muslim, and he was pretty liberal. Okay, meaning he drank alcohol. He didn't necessarily fast during the month of Ramadan. He was pretty liberal, so he observed his religion in some ways, and in some ways he didn't. I wasn't Muslim and made it very clear that I had no intentions of converting to Islam. And this wasn't an issue until we got into it and it became a lot more serious. And then I saw this as an issue because now my dressing started becoming an issue. So I worked for this airline. It was Saudi Arabian Airlines, and we had this beautiful uniform. It was navy blue skirts that were fitting. So some of them were made short, just slightly above the knee, and others were very long, all the way to the ankles. And for each style, there was a slit at the back, and the long ones, the slits looked beautiful, I'm telling you, but they were form-fitting. And the blouses were also really nice. I love those kinds of blouses to date. I think if you've watched some of my videos, you'll see those kinds of blouses to date. They have a bow here, a pussy bow here, and hey, please don't start misconstruing my words. That the bow that looks like a pussycat, that's what I mean, all right? All right, and long sleeve, and then a little bit of a puff at the cuffs. They were really beautiful blouses. I love those blouses today. So the uniform was beautiful. It was form-fitting. I was young. I had a wasp waist. Oh my God, I looked amazing. So I loved the long stuff and I also loved the short stuff. But soon enough, my dressing became an issue. In the minute we started to live together, my dressing became an issue. So I had clothes of my own. By this time, I wasn't working for the airline. I had moved on. I was working for a company. I was working for Skynet World Express. And I had my own clothes. I wore civilian clothes. The airline had a uniform. So I wore civilian clothes, but I still kept to, what was form fitting. Sometimes there were long trousers, sometimes there were long skirts, sometimes there were short skirts. I loved the short skirts. And I loved high heels. And I loved my red lipstick. And I loved my makeup. Look, I think I'll do another video on this. I have had very bad acne, very, very bad acne. You probably can see it now because I've done a lot of work on it over the years. I'll probably do another video on that. So I wore makeup, not necessarily for the aesthetic value, but I wore it specifically to hide my scars and a lot of times hide the pimples themselves, because I had pimples everywhere, on my face, on my chest, everywhere. I had pimples everywhere, on my back, on my arms, everywhere. So makeup was one of my best friends. I didn't leave the house without makeup, but that was many years ago. And, so makeup became an issue because it was suddenly too much. And my clothes became an issue because it was suddenly too fitting. And for me, those were non-negotiable. When I think back, do I still feel the same way right now? Right now, it's the principle. You can't control what I wear. You just cannot. You cannot decide how I present myself in public. At that time, I was strong-headed and I didn't quite know how to articulate what I felt was wrong with it. So I was kind of rude about it. That's not an excuse, So if you're in a relationship and you have some issues that are similar, it's not an excuse how you articulate yourself for someone to beat you up. But it did happen. So I said, look, this is how I dress and I'm not going to change it. And with that, of course, came a blow and a slap. And soon enough, I would be on the ground. And this gentleman was very smart. He wouldn't quite concentrate on my face. He would make sure that he would hit me. He was a big guy. He was a tall, big guy. He would hit me to the ground. And when I was on the ground, then he would be kicking my vitals. He would be kicking my chest area and kicking my stomach, areas that I wouldn't, now that I think about it, I wouldn't be able to show people, areas that wouldn't be so obvious if somebody saw me the next day. I guess it was a way of him protecting himself as well, because you're not going to address to everybody if you're going to tell this story that somebody beat you up last night, right? So, but then on the flip side, thinking about it, somebody hits your vitals, you don't know what's going to happen. I see one of my little girls showing, and it's a Saturday, I'm sitting at home. Don't ask me to wear those things that are underwear. The last thing I want to see right now. That's maybe too much information, but that's your problem. Look, so that was one of the issues, or so-called issues. And it was just non-negotiable for me. You just don't control what I wear. And it was a little late in the game to start telling me what to wear. You met me this way. You knew what the deal was. If that was going to be something you required, you should have told me that in advance. Well, I wasn't going to change. And that became an issue. And that became a reason to be beaten because I said I wasn't going to change it. Another issue, I'm just looking at the notes, the message I was exchanging with my friend, was my high energy and confidence. It didn't fit with this idea of what a wife should have been. I should ideally have been, and I didn't know this beforehand, I should have been very, very soft-spoken, very polite, very, I think his idea of humble, all right? And if you know anything about me, that's just not me. It's just not. I am usually bubbly. I work up a room the minute I walk in. I am talkative. Look, I am just, I love the way I am. It's not going to change. And that's what a lot of people like about me. And those who don't like, I don't give two hoots anymore. I don't think I did give a hoot even back then. But now it became an issue. It wasn't when we met, but it became an issue. It particularly was an issue when one time, it was, I think, 2 days after we went to my village and he paid dowry. So we were at Uchumi. If you remember, Uchumi was fairly new. Uchumi at Ngong Road. the hypermart, the first Uchumi hypermart on Gong Road was very new, and I'd never been there. So we went to this Uchumi and we bought some groceries. Now, on the way, during our shopping trip inside Uchumi, I met this gentleman. I don't remember what his name was. He was my cousin's boyfriend at the time. He was a widower, much older, kissy gentleman. So I see him and I say hello. Oh, hey, how you doing? He hadn't seen me, but I saw him and I stopped him. I said, hello, hey, I'm Elsie's cousin. Hey, Elsie, if you're watching, I'm Elsie's cousin. Oh, yes, how are you? Long time, man. And then I, of course, introduced my now husband. Meanwhile, I mean, we just paid Dara the other day, so it's a fairly new thing. Oh, this is my husband. And, we continued shopping and we left the supermarket and went home. But before we got home, so we lived in South Beach, okay, 5-star, right? And we passed through Kenyatta Market, okay? So from Ngong Road, we went through the Royal Country Club, I think, Royal Golf Club, and then to Kenyatta Market area, and we were now going all the way to South Beach. But before we left Kenyatta Market area, it's a busy area, and during rush hour, it can be very busy. So, so there was traffic, and I wasn't paying attention because he was driving. And at some point, I just hear him hoot several times. He was hitting the horn. Boop, 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 boop. I thought, what the hell is going on? So I thought somebody had hit us from the back or he had hit somebody at the front. I didn't realize that this gentleman had kept his anger and had held onto it from the store. It was say about 40 minutes before this hitting of the horn in the car. And he said, what's wrong with you? So I looked at him wondering what had happened. I mean, we weren't talking as he was driving. I was in my own world. Sometimes, those times when you just sit in the car, you're made, you're not having a conversation, but it's like quiet silence. And I hadn't even known that he was upset about anything. So I asked him, what's wrong? He says, what's wrong with you? Don't you realize that you're now a married woman? You're supposed to be humble. You don't just go saying hello to men. Oh, Jesus, really? What men? The man in the supermarket. Why did you have to say hello to him? If he had seen you, that was a different thing. But you sought him to say hello to him. What's wrong with you? You're a married woman. Oh my God, people, I'm not even going to get into that. I realized I was in trouble. I realized I was in deep trouble, especially because I hadn't even realized that the man was upset about that. I saw somebody I knew. I said hello. I introduced him. If that's not basic good manners in a relationship, I don't know what is. I guess that's why I'm not married anymore. But I didn't see anything wrong with it. And I still don't see what's wrong with it. But I'm telling you, this man was seething with anger. I think if we had been in a space where it wasn't public, I think he would have hit me and it would have hurt me really bad because he was angry. Hold on to that. So that's my personality. And then, let me see what else here. I said my makeup was an issue. That wasn't going to stop. Okay. First and foremost, when you have acne, it's one of those things that, just really eat into your self-esteem like nothing I have known before. So my makeup was going nowhere, especially for as long as I had acne, my makeup was going nowhere. It was my mask. I'm going to do another video where once I went to a club and somebody said, oh, that girl is pretty, but I think she's sick. I'm going to talk about it later on. And it's not an aspersion to those who are suffering from HIV because my family has been very closely hit by HIV. My father died of HIV, so that's not the issue. But somebody said that it was so offensive, not because having HIV is such a big deal. It's not to me anyway, but because I knew exactly what it means to have HIV, and the fact that somebody has acne is a whole other story, but I digress. So for me, makeup was something that hid a lot of things, and it was me hiding my vulnerability. So it wasn't going anywhere. My makeup was staying put, and I love my red lipstick and it's staying put. Okay. Now, another issue was relatives coming to live with us. Suddenly we needed to live with relatives. I met this gentleman, he wasn't living with anybody. He had several siblings, 12 to be precise, but he wasn't living with any of them. Suddenly, because there's somebody, a woman in the house who can do housework or can organize for housework to be done, now relatives should have come to live with us. Look, we had dated on and off tumultuously for 16 months. And it was really, really difficult, really difficult. What possessed me to even take him home, for him to pay dowry and formalize this the traditional way? I guess it was insecurities at that time. And ladies, if you think that it's time for you to settle down, if you think that you're supposed to be married and settling down by a certain age, by a certain time, by Lord knows what, please don't. That's unnecessary pressure on you. Nobody said so. Nobody said so. Nobody said you're supposed to be married by a certain time. Nobody said you're supposed to be having kids by a certain time. Nobody said that those kids have to be boys. Nobody said all those stuff. Nobody said that. You decide what you want in your life and stick to it. Don't let the world dictate to you how you live, because when I was suffering in there, when I was getting beaten in there, that world wasn't with me. Nobody knew how much I was suffering. And I think if I told them that they would ask me to, just stay in there. They did actually. And thank God I didn't listen. But don't listen if anybody's telling you anything like that. It's not necessary to be married. It's not. If you want to, if that's the thing that really makes you feel complete in life, by all means do it. But if it's going to kill you, just get out of it, please, before it's too late. All right. So the next thing was those relatives. And I said, no relatives. I don't even know you very well. So can we just get to know each other before we talk about relatives? And I lived with relatives most of my life. I started living with relatives when I was 7 years old. And I did until I was 19 years old when I started to live, 18, when I started to live on my own. So I know what it means. And I'm grateful for those who lived with me, but it's not something I want to do. I really do not want to do it. You never can be the good relative living with others. You never can be. However well you try to treat them, there's always going to be a problem, because there's always going to be comparison. And because I compared, and so many things didn't go right. Sometimes they were intentional, and sometimes people just didn't mean to hurt me in many ways that they did. So I vowed I wouldn't live with relatives, and I just don't. I simply don't. I will help you from a distance, but I don't. And when I've tried, even when I changed my mind about that and I tried, I still became the bad person, and I quickly shut it off. Very quickly shut it off. Okay. Now, do what works for you. This is what works for me. It helps me in many ways, but of course, it also earns me a very interesting name. That woman who doesn't like living with relatives, and she was helped for most of her life. That's a whole other conversation. Now, I know I'm rambling. It's Saturday afternoon. I'm just, and just conversations with this friend just got me thinking a lot of things, and I'm reflecting a lot, and I'm empathizing with her as I record this. The next thing, which really was a big issue, was how I spent my salary. So I come from a large family. My mother had 10 kids. I'm the last of those 10 kids. And by the time I was starting to work and live on my own and take care of myself, my mom had long died, and my father was living with somebody else, one of his other wives. So I had no other responsibilities, immediate responsibilities besides myself. I wasn't making a lot of money. I worked for Saudi Arabian Airlines. That was my first job. I made 9,005 shillings a month. I started that job in 1994. Most of my schoolmates had gone to university. I didn't make it to the university, so I finished high school. Then I attended secretarial college. Then I said I got this job. So by the time I was meeting this gentleman, this was my second job. Okay, I made some money. It was good money at that point in time. I worked for the advertising company. I believe I made 70,000 shillings. So this was an improvement, because after Saudi Arabian Airlines, I went to work for Skynet World Express. Then I came back to work for the advertising company to avoid going to Mombasa. So it was a pretty decent income, especially for a single girl at that time. But I had lived alone for a long time. I modeled as well. I was not a catwalk model, but I did TV ads. I did newspaper ads. I did, I think, a directory one time, a fax directory, a telephone directory one time. So I made some money on the side modeling as well. I was pretty set up in my little house. I lived in a 1-bedroom place, and I had all my furniture done there. I had my fridge, my kitchen was sorted out. I cooked from home. I'm a homebody. I really am a homebody. I'm a couch potato. I have a bubbly personality. I'm outgoing, but at the same time, I love my space. I love my own company. I love to make my space comfortable. So I was pretty set up at home. And I also worked, my first job was uniformed. And then now I was working jobs where I didn't have a uniform, so I was building my wardrobe. And being a last child, I always had clothes that were left to me, were handed down to me by my elder sisters. So this was the first time I was buying clothes for myself, So it was also a very exciting time. And I love fashion on the classical side, but I do love good clothes. I love to buy clothes. I love shopping. I just love shopping. Anywhere my money is being spent, even if it took me to buy tractors, I'd be happy so long as money is being spent. So, and living on my own without responsibilities, I was used to spending my money how I wanted it. I mean, it got me into trouble a lot of times when I started living on my own because I didn't know how to budget very well. But by that time I was marrying this gentleman, I had my routine. I earned my salary, I paid my rent, and sometimes I didn't pay my rent, by the way. That's a whole other conversation. And I shopped for my food. I stocked up everything in the freezer. I always had help living with me. After working for the airline, I really didn't treat myself very well, and I developed a problem with piles. So because I was eating a lot of bread and eggs and just drinking milk, it wasn't very healthy. So I had problems with piles. I think also from school, bad toilets. I would just avoid going to the bathroom. So I ended up having piles. So one of the things I had to do was eat very healthy, have good vegetables, render, make sure that my movement was great. So I always had help. That meant feeding an extra mouth. I always did my shopping at the beginning of the month, stocked my fridge and did everything. And then I bought clothes, I bought shoes, I bought makeup, I did my hair every weekend. I mean, I was a single girl. But how I spent my money became a problem. This gentleman actually expected that I would earn my salary and then give it to him at the end of the month. And then it was up to him to decide how much he would give me back to spend. Guys, I'm alone in the house. Kids are spending time with daddy. I have a friend staying over. She's out for the day. I'm alone in the house and I'm dying of laughter. I think if a neighbor is passing, she's wondering, what the hell is going on in that house? Seraphine must have company. I'm alone. The thought of that is just ridiculous. I'm laughing because I can't believe that someone actually expected me to hand over my salary. Excuse me? I mean, I didn't even live during the slave era. I don't know what it means to take my salary and give it to somebody. Are you joking? And this was after, I think, 2 months of sort of living together. Before I took this gentleman to my village to marry me, I lived with him on and off for 1 year, 6 months. Okay. And during that time, I moved in and then I moved out. I moved in, and it was one of the most expensive relationships in my life. My God. You know why I was moving in and moving out? Because we would always be fighting about money. Why? Because as far as he was concerned, we should have shared the bills. And I thought, no, you're either ready for a wife or you're not, And this became such an issue. But I didn't realize that it wasn't just about sharing bills. This gentleman actually expected me to give him, as in work a whole month, and then take my salary and then hand it over to him. And then ask him, or rather wait for him of his own volition to give me what my spending money from my salary was. Guys, Ladies, apparently, this is how it's done in other communities. This is how it's done by other people. Definitely not me. Not at that time, not now, and never, ever. And, every time I would say a categoric no, a very categoric no, it would be a blow, and there would be a beating, and there would be insults. I mean, have you ever met a man who insults you like a co-wife? It's funny now, but believe me, at that time, it wasn't. I was traumatized. Sometimes you just got to laugh at yourself. I mean, I think back and I wonder, why the hell did I even stay there another minute? In fact, why did I even go to the village? Why did I even go to present him to my people? Remember, at that time, I didn't have both parents. They were long, not, yes, both my parents were long gone by that time. So it was about putting family members together, traveling all the way from Nairobi and Kisumu, taking them to the village and asking them to officiate such a function. Obviously, it was up to me to foot the bill. Okay? Why I would bother with that after all that drama in the dating relationship? Some of these things we do when we're young and stupid and inexperienced and looking to please the rest of the world before you understand who you are, what you stand for, and most of all, what you don't want, because we're very good at articulating what we want, but rarely do we think about what we do not want. Ladies, especially young ladies, if you're thinking about tying the knot with anybody, if you're thinking about living with anybody, please think about the money issue. Please, please, please think about the money issue. Who is going to take care of what? But here is my thinking, honestly, and you could liberate me to the moon and back. I think that if any man feels he's old enough to have a wife and wants a family, he shouldn't be expecting a woman to foot bills, because what women bring to any relationship, the value they add to any discerning man's life is invaluable. You cannot put a figure to it. Maybe I'm just traditional. Maybe I'm just thinking about this the way I was raised. Men provide. And talk to me about how liberated I should be, how more modern I should be, how more exposed I should be. That's your problem. In my mind, no, I don't foot bills. But after that experience, I wasn't going to have a conversation about bills. Either I have it or I didn't. And I got into another relationship where I had it and I did everything. Yes, the same person who is telling you now that if a man is old enough to get married, he should foot the bills, actually footed the bills. That's a whole other conversation. People, it's a Saturday and I'm supposed to go out and show my sister a few things in a store. So I'm going to love you and leave you with these few remarks. And I insist there were very few, but yes, those were some of the contentious issues. Something else that I didn't write to my friend just now was that I would, out of courtesy, wash my mate's underwear. Another thing that I grew up watching, my parents didn't live together. I lived in my village with my mother, and my father lived in the city and came to the village once in a while. I remembered on 2 occasions that when he came, by the time he would come late at night, I mean, I would wake up in the morning and find that he was there. There would be many people in the compound. My father was a politician, so there would be many, many people in the compound already waiting. My mother would have woken up early. There would be other women already called to help prepare tea and Lord knows what else for, agents who would come to talk to him about this and that. So I would find, a lot of people in the compound by the time I woke up in the morning, and my mother would have already washed everything that my father came with. He would take everything that he had, clothes and underwear, and by the time I woke up in the morning, we had 4 lines, 4 clotheslines outside our house. Between my mother's house and a stepmother's house, there were 4 clotheslines. They're still there to date. They were built in. And they're long lines. Those 4 lines would be filled with my father's innerwear. All of them would be white. All of them would be white. And I remember marveling at the fact that, you know how you have innerwear today and you have, Calvin Klein on the band. My father's innerwear had MJ Ogutu, MJ Ogutu, and I'd be wondering, why would he have? I mean, I was a little girl. Of course, my panties didn't have any name, but I was wondering, why would he have his name on his innerwear? And the whole line would be filled with that. But what I didn't understand at that time was that, looking at this in my mind, wives washed husbands' underwear. So I grew up, and when I got married, the first thing I did was wash my husband's underwear. Every weekend, I would wash them and hang them in the bathroom. We didn't have clotheslines. We lived in South Sea. It was, a duplex. So I had a little thing in the bathroom where I would hang them there, underwear for 1 week, just hang them there, wash them nicely. I mean, there would be start smelling in the bedroom. They would be clean and whatnot. Oh, I was feeling like a wonderful wife. Oh, gosh, I mean, I'm doing what my mother did. I'm a nice girl. Oh dear, the things we do when we think we're doing the right thing and we don't realize that times have changed, and what my mother did at that time applied at that time. It does not necessarily apply now, and this man is not my father. Ladies, oh, please think about these things that you learned from your parents and you think are supposed to work in your relationship because you thought they worked at that time. I wonder what my mother would say if I spoke with her about things like these today. I would love to ask her just one of those things. Mama, why did he appreciate it? I'm going to tell you another story in another video when I eventually did it for somebody else. And after 7 years, he asked me, but who asked you to do it? Guys, yeah. So I refused to wash underwear with this gentleman because at some point he decided that he was going to throw them everywhere. He would come from work and he loved his suits. He would wear, those days, I think the designer in vogue was Pierre Cardin. Yes, he would wear Pierre Cardin suits, and from work he would take them off. He would hang them very well himself, and then he would throw his innerwear somewhere. But I lived with my housekeeper. She was a very nice young girl, very, very nice young girl. I lived with her before I got married and moved into this gentleman's house. So I moved with her. She had finished her 12th grade Form 4, and she was working as a maid only so that she could make enough money to go to teachers training college. And eventually she did, by the way. Okay. So, I mean, this is a girl who was working with me and living with me, but honestly, she was more or less a younger sister with a very good relationship. And I just couldn't see how I would leave those knickers on the floor for her to come and pick up. So I picked them up out of respect for my housekeeper, not because I felt my husband should throw his innerwear somewhere and it was my duty to go pick them up. Okay. But I guess I set myself up for that kind of treatment when I washed the innerwear, because I guess in his mind, it registered that it's my job. So I could as well pick them up from the car for all he cared. That's another conversation. But anyway, so I would pick them up and now I would put them in the bathroom. And I told him, if you can hang up your suits, you can take your innerwear to the bucket in the bathroom. And if you don't, I'll pick them up out of respect for my maid, but I'll never touch them again. I think he thought I was joking. The next day, he threw them on the floor. I said, I did warn you yesterday. I have picked up, I'm putting it in the bathroom, but I'll never wash it again. Come Sunday, I washed mine. He came home later on. Of course, the bathroom smells nice and great, and their panties hang there. They were mine. His were stuck in the bucket as they are. He left them there 1 week, 2 weeks, and by the 3rd week, he was running out of underwear. Now, don't start calculating how many pieces of innerwear he had. Hey, come on. Hey, be nice. And why am I telling you this story publicly? Because people need to know there's somebody who's going to benefit. If you're judging me for telling you this, if you're judging me for talking about this when he doesn't have the right of refusal, you shouldn't be listening to this in the first place. It means this video is not for you. It's going to help somebody else. If you're not that person, please swipe left and move on to other channels. My name is Seraphine, and this was one of the last issues that I was going to talk about today. So I stopped washing the innerwear. I'd pick them up, put them in the bucket, but I wouldn't wash them. The next time he went to look for an innerwear and he didn't have one, let's just say that I thought my ribs were broken. You know, the things that get you beaten in relationships that are not good for you are such issues that shouldn't even be issues, really. If you're in a relationship that is violent, I don't care what it is. I don't care if you think it's your fault. I don't care if he has told you it's your fault. I don't care if you actually believe it is. I don't care if everybody else around you is telling you it's your fault. If a man who expects you to be a partner in his life, if a man who expects you to be supportive of him, if a man who claims to love you lays his hands on you, my best advice to you, my sister, wherever you are, leave before it's too late. No man is worth dying for. If there is one, he's not yet born. Have a great weekend. My name is Seraphine. If this is useful to you, even just for entertainment, share it with somebody who may benefit. Bye for now.